Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Mentor Minutes, where I field any of your questions in regards to leadership, management, workplace situations. I try to take the principles and the theory of leadership and put it into practical terms that get you over the hurdles and over the obstacles that you're facing in your day in, day out work. Now, I did want to give a shout out earlier today. I posted my first video in a single step leadership series. The principle behind that is that it is often consistent effort, not big, huge leaps forward. We all look for those, but it's often consistent effort that gets those results over time. And so every week I'm going to be producing one video with one concept for you to work on. And as time goes on and weeks go on, you apply each of these principles week in and week out. All of a sudden you're putting together 8, 10, 12 principles, and you start seeing the effect on your leadership. Simple things, week in, week out, that's what's going to get you those results. So if you haven't checked out that video, I encourage you, check it out. I just posted it a few hours ago. MP, so good to see you here. So as we queue up some people for some questions, I'll just field some that I've received offline. So if you have any questions, drop down in the comment section. I will get to those right away. First question's a good one, and that is, you spend 40 plus hours a week with your employees. You spend more time with them than you do your own family. Where's the appropriate line between personal and professional relationships with your staff? Can you be friends and be a successful manager at the same time? The answer is yes. Yes, you can be friends with your teammates. Shahab, so good to see you here. This Friday I'll be discussing the brand new book, The Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Willink, and I just got done reading the chapter on the biggest dichotomy of leadership, and that is caring about the team but caring about your mission as well. And that's really where the line is drawn. When we talk about personal and professional relationships at work, it's fine for you to be their friend, but there are limits, there are boundaries. A good rule of thumb is, if there is some sort of party, you are the last to arrive and you are the first to leave if you're a leader, because that kind of creates a good boundary for it. Mark, so good to see you here. So that's one, kind of rule of thumb. The big rule of thumb, though, in regards to personal relationships in a professional environment is you still need to be okay with perhaps being at a birthday party with them the night before and then writing them up and disciplining them at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's the real test. And it isn't just that you are okay with it. It also is that they have to be okay with it. And that's where a lot of times the problem comes in. They feel like you are their friend, and so they should get special treatment. And so you want to be crystal clear on what the purpose is of the organization, and you have to choose. It comes down to a choice. You have to be their friend or be their boss, one or the other. And so in my personal career, I had no problem with that. I had no problem going out and celebrating somebody's birthday, whatever, the night before, and then writing somebody up the next day. But I did have plenty of employees that had a problem with that. And so it inhibited that relationship outside. Now, you'll notice that what I'm saying here is not necessarily that you're hanging out at somebody's house constantly. I don't think that they should be your best friends. I don't think that they should probably your close friend, depending on how you want to phrase it. But acquaintances, people that you might hang out with, that you might, if you're shooting pool in the evening, that you might tag along with that. But again, be mindful of that professional relationship and be able to draw those clear lines. That's the key. Amanda, so good to see you here. So as we had some more people, George, nice to have you on board. If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section. I'll field them as we go. I do have a few that I received offline, so I'll tackle those while we queue up some questions online here. I'm going through assessments for manager next week. Any advice to represent myself with confidence and competence? So assessments is another term for interviews. Jerry, good to see you here. Omnia, so good to have you on board as well. So if you're going for an interview for manager, moving into looking to make that jump, the key, and this is a key, quite frankly, for interviews in general, you want to get in touch with what your accomplishments are, not what your responsibilities are. Everybody's got the same responsibilities if they've got your title. The question you want to be able to answer is, why are you the best person that has had that role, that has been in that role? So get crystal clear on your accomplishments. Are there any special projects that you took on? Did you take on any training? Did you revise the policy and procedure manual? Were you employee of the month? Did you have the highest sales? Did you have the highest output? All of those things. Get clear on what you did really, really well. And when you get those things in your mind, you're going to present yourself with confidence because you've just given yourself some confidence. I also recommend putting those in your resume. That way you don't have to feel like you're bragging. That's a big problem that people have in interviews, is they don't want to come across like they're bragging. Well, you need to brag. And one of the easiest ways to do that is include a little accomplishment section in your resume. That way you don't have to brag. Your resume does the bragging for you. And so that's my big hint. If you want to be confident, get crystal clear on what you have accomplished with the prior positions that you've had, and that'll convey that a little bit better. Hazam has a point here. I missed one point. We shouldn't be best friends with our subordinates. I really think that crosses the line, Hazam, and this is all a huge gray area. Don't get me wrong. Personal relationships in the professional environment, huge gray area where you can be best friends with, say, a peer, but then what happens when they progress to the next level? It all gets kind of wishy-washy. I don't think that having super close relationships with your team is something that's going to benefit you, shall we say. But having casual friendships with your team, I think, is a good thing to be able to manage if you both can manage that aspect of things. But being best friends with a subordinate is ripe for all kinds of perception issues and creating problems down the road. And I think that what happens is that becomes a strain on that friendship, because you have to make that choice. Are you going to be their boss or their friend? There's a test that comes in that. And when you have that choice, what are you going to be? If they're your best friend, you might choose friendship. And that means that you need to look for another position within the organization, because you can't represent that boss aspect of things nearly as well. Great clarification, Hazem. I appreciate you doing that. And hey, any questions that I'm answering, any feedback that you have, if you want to call BS on what I'm saying, by all means do so. It rounds out the conversation really well. And Reja, good to see you here, and Muhammad as well. Next question I received offline. And again, any questions, drop down in the comment section. Any frustrations you've had, any general issues that you have, maybe not management and leadership related, but that you're having personally with the job. You can drop those down as well. There's a lot of motivation and getting over failure and stuff like that people deal with. And so if you have any of those situations, drop those down and we'll talk through those, because everybody deals with those frustrations and those problems. What to do if feeling overworked and underappreciated? Let's getting right to it. I finish a lot of projects, but it is unrecognized. I understand that I'm not giving that much visibility to my manager. And so part of it is, so you're feeling, I'll tackle two things. So there's overwork, and then there is not feeling unappreciated, okay? So in regards to the overworked, the big thing that I want to push on this is you may not have as much time in your personal life as you would want. That, we go through lots of seasons in our career where we're just cranking. We got tons of things to do, and so we're at work all the time. But what you can do is you can focus. You may not have the quantity in your personal life, but you can focus on the quality. So what is it that you like to do? Hey, I know there's plenty of time and there's plenty of reasons to go sit down and veg out on the couch, just relax and have a chill weekend, a chill evening, that sort of thing. But you should pepper in some real quality time in your personal life. That may be meeting friends for drinks. That may be taking your wife out for a dinner. That may be catching a movie, if that's what you like to do. It may be chilling at Barnes & Noble and browsing the magazine rack. Whatever it is, cooking a new recipe, going hiking, doing something fun. Whatever it is that you really enjoy doing, make that a priority in your free time. So when you're feeling overworked, take a look at balancing that lever by getting more quality over here in your personal life, and that'll help balance that overwork. The other thing as far as overwork is concerned is start focusing on the things that you like, not the things that you don't like. Too much of that it's a perception issue. Michelle, great to have you jump on here. So much of it is a perception issue. You feel overworked, and what happens is you start focusing on the negative, and you start focusing on all the things that you don't like to do. So balance that focus at work and look at what you're doing that's challenging, that's interesting, that the impact that you're having at work. Not the work itself, but the impact that work has. And that flips that perception just a little bit. So work on quality as opposed to quantity in your personal life. When you are crazy busy at work. And then be sure to be mindful of your perceptions at work as well. Look at what you are accomplishing, its effect, not necessarily the work itself. That helps change those things. There's all kinds of things as far as talking to your boss and delegating and that, and we can get into that. If anybody has any questions on that, we can get into that a little bit, but those are two things that are completely in your control that can help kind of balance that, and hopefully this thing just kind of moves to where you're underworked, shall we say, in another few weeks, a month from now. Hopefully it's just a season and not necessarily something that's constant in the workplace. The second thing is underappreciated. So how do you deal with a situation where you feel like you are underappreciated? Part of it is having more conversations with your boss. And what you do is you simply update them. You update them and you ask if you can help with anything. Now, I realize that if you're overworked, you don't necessarily want to ask for more work, but that is kind of, that's capturing their attention in regards to things. Hey, just so you know, I'm finishing up this particular thing and this particular thing, and do you need any help with anything else? I've also got a couple other things I'm working on, but I just wanted to see if there was anything that you needed help with. That can be a conversation where you're bringing them into the loop and they're seeing what you're doing. So much of it is that you're underappreciated. It's not that they really don't appreciate you, it's that they take it for granted. And I realize those things are kind of the same thing, but there's at least when they're taking you for granted, there's perhaps a heart there that still appreciates you and what it is that you're doing. So be sure to communicate more with your boss. You'll have those opportunities to bring up what it is that you're working on and ask to work on other things with them. Those things that they give you will definitely capture their attention. The second thing in regards to being underappreciated is to track your own successes. I run into this a lot with people that have very weak leaders that they don't track their metrics. Well, track your own metrics. Create your own little charts on what your performance is, what you're accomplishing. Put that up on your cubicle, on your office, someplace visible so that you can see it. That's a great way of cementing for yourself what you're accomplishing and what you are doing. But I'll tell you what, it's also a trick that I've used, and you can use this if you feel underappreciated by your boss. You're not getting the recognition. Let's say you're a leader of a department and you're not getting the recognition from the executive team on what you're doing. Create these charts and put them in someplace public. Leadership, I used the term before. Charts are like catnip for executives. So if you put up a chart and it's going in the right direction, they're going to ask what that chart is when they come spinning through. They love looking at those things. So chart it yourself and be part of your own recognition. That can be helpful. Griselda, so good to see you here. I'm glad you joined. And Cameron Anthony Daniel, 3 first names, like it. How to cope up the new members on the team to a 10-year performance when the requirement is reply urgent, and I'm missing some of that. So I'm going to kind of take a leap here with this, Cameron. I'm missing some of this in the translation. If you're looking for the most important thing with new members, if you want to get them to the level of performance of somebody who's been there for a while, for the experienced members, the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that they are crystal clear on what the expectation is. This is the performance that we expect. No, we don't expect you coming off the street to be excellent at it. But this is the performance that we expect. And then what you want to do is you want to, on regular, it isn't just the training. So once they're done with all of the training, you want to regularly get them in touch with somebody else who is an excellent performer. Because you want to get them in the loop on what the best practices are. You want them to see people accomplishing this expectation, exceeding this expectation. Because that sets in their mind that it is possible, they know what the goal is, and they're picking up little tidbits, best practices. So maybe once a week for the morning, or once a week for the afternoon, they sit with somebody who is good at that particular job. So get crystal clear on the expectations and then have them circulate through the team, and they can pick up tips, tricks, whatever that will help them meet those expectations. That's the main key. So good training is kind of the entry level, the price of entry for this, but make sure they're clear on the expectations and that they're getting those, getting that feedback from other individuals. We are in a great job market, shop yourself. And that's right, Mark. So many, certainly here stateside, it's a good job market. Get clear on your accomplishments. Get your resume ready. Circulate it around. One of the things that I talk about is that it is important to kind of keep a pulse on what's out there in the job market. Not that you want to necessarily leave your position, but it gives you it eases some of the concern in regards to your own job position when you see other jobs out there. You can also see what might be catching your fancy, what might be exciting you. If there are particular job descriptions, particular job titles that really seem to interest you. It helps you stay out of a rut. And not for nothing, but you can always interview for jobs. You don't have to accept a job offer if it's given to you. You can go out there and kind of shop yourself around, as Mark says, or go out there and just see what's out there. And if it's not better than what you're currently working on, then you don't have to accept the job if you get it. Elaine, I'm glad you joined us today. So I am caught up on questions, so if you have any, drop them down in the comment section. I'll answer them in real time. I've got a couple more to get to that I received offline. What is the best strategy? This is a good one. What is the best strategy to coach up your manager? On-the-spot accountability or private after-the-fact discussion? My manager deflects often. Perhaps that's the question. So if you want to coach up your manager, and this is something that everybody should do, I want to be clear on this. Even the greatest leaders are not perfect. The greatest leaders have weaknesses. And it's your role as a follower of that leader to find a way to magnify their strengths and minimize their weaknesses. So coaching up your manager isn't just for bad managers, it's also for good managers. Now the best way to do this is in private. I'll answer that directly, is in private. And what you want to present is you want to present solutions. So, hey, I saw that we did this in this particular meeting. Have you ever thought about doing it this particular way? I think that might get some more interesting results. And then, you work out how you phrase it depending on your boss and how they take that sort of feedback. But present solutions to them. So you're talking coaching, so you're giving them direction on other opportunities that they can avail themselves of in taking things to a particular direction. So do it privately. Do it and do it with a solution focus, and look for those opportunities where you can step in and be of help ahead of time. So lots of times our managers might have weaknesses that we are well aware of. PowerPoint might be a classic one. Spreadsheets might be another one. I'm not particularly adept at spreadsheets. Offer your assistance ahead of time to help them out in that particular situation. Hey, I know that we have a meeting next week. Did you want me to give you a hand with the PowerPoint presentation, or is there any numbers I can pull for the spreadsheet to get that put together for you? So offer your services ahead of time. And that can also be, talking about the price of entry, that can be your entry into coaching them in different ways as well. So I hope that helps. That's a really good question there. Laura Petra, so good to see you here, and appreciate you kind of giving the thumbs up and hitting the comment section there. When you have failed to hold people accountable, how do you turn that around? Well, it's kind of the obvious response, but let's say you failed to hold people accountable. Well, you need to start holding them accountable. But how you want to do that is you want to start, because if they've got momentum going in the wrong direction, you want to turn that momentum around. I don't want to say slowly. That's not what I want to do, but simply. So you want to pick something that's small that you can hold them accountable to, and something that is obvious. All right, so small and obvious. So I'll use the example of attendance. Let's say people have started showing up late. Everybody knows they're supposed to show up on time. So it's something small, something you can hold them accountable for and say, hey, we've gotten a little bit lax on showing up on time on our attendance to certain things. So I want to start holding everybody accountable for that. So I'm going to start tracking. I'm going to start having those verbal discussions with you if you start coming in late. So you start on something small and something obvious. And then the next week, let's say, pick something else that is a little bit bigger and a little bit less obvious perhaps. And so start moving those things around like that. Also, at some point there, you're going to want to get clear on what those expectations are. The number one thing with accountability is making sure that your team is clear on what your expectations are. And believe it or not, even if you've been crystal clear, some of your team members are a little fuzzy on what those accountability metrics are and what what qualifies as good performance. We talk all the time about doing something well. There's a big difference there between what you consider doing well and what somebody else does. So get as crystal clear as possible on those expectations. Bring those things around. But if you are in an environment that hasn't been held accountable, and this can be you coming into a new environment, start small, start with the obvious stuff, and start building that track record up. Then introduce the clear expectations that you have, and that's something that will turn that all around. So again, any questions, drop down in the comment section. I've got just a couple more that I received offline. What are some of the ways we can improve culture for a better workplace and increase sales in a small, long-term work team? If you want to improve culture, but not just do that, but also have it be practical, I'm going to throw out my 5 questions for you. You're going to hit every single employee with this. What you're going to do is it's not a fun exercise, which is fine. If you want to improve the workplace culture, do that. But it is an exercise that builds engagement and ownership in what is going on. And it's going to give you a ton of ideas on how to improve sales and improve the culture. So 5 questions you want to hit your team with. And those of you that know what's coming, my challenge to you is, have you done these 5 questions with your team? If you haven't, then send out the email to all of your team with these 5 questions. What do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong in the organization? Where are there opportunities that we need to take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do a better job? Those 5 questions will give you a ton of information. Now, what you do is you take the low-hanging fruit, the easy responses. Well, we need a new printer. We'll get a new printer. We need Post-it notes. Something silly, something stupid. We need more Post-it notes. Spend the extra $50 a month to get more Post-it notes for the team. Handle the simple things. And what that does is they realize that not only are you interested in their opinion, which is huge from a motivation standpoint, but you're actually willing to act on it and do something about it. Well, now they have an ownership stake in the business, in the organization. And so they want to give their feedback more. So those 5 questions again: what do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong in the organization? Where are there opportunities we need to take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do a better job? Those 5 questions will improve your culture if you take action on that information, and they will likely improve your sales and your performance because you will be getting new ideas, fresh ideas, and ideas that the team's going to buy into because they're the ones that came up with it in the first place. So that's my big thing if you want to make those sorts of improvements. And those that have heard me say that before, I challenge you again, email your team that. When they don't respond, because sometimes they won't respond in email, then follow up and say, hey, I sent that email out a couple of days ago with those 5 questions. I just wanted to follow up. What do you see going right in the organization right now? And just ask them. It doesn't have to be a formal thing. It doesn't have to be crazy, crazy structured or anything like that. It can be simple discussions. You'll get a few ideas, take action on those, and then what you do is 3, 4, 5 weeks later, you hit them all with those questions again. And once they've seen that you've taken action on that, you're going to get a ton more feedback. Laura's got a question for us here. And how do you help someone respond more openly and less defensively to robust discussion? First of all, you model the behavior. So if you're in a leadership role, Laura, you make sure that people know when you've made a mistake. You know what? I'm changing, call it out. If it's a discussion, you know what? Call it out. I'm changing my mind on that. I think that we should do this because so-and-so has recommended this. That's convincing. So you model the behavior that you want to see. One of the most important things that a leader can do is tell everybody when they've screwed up, because then that makes it okay for everybody else to screw up. So that's one of the big things. Second thing is, I want you to actually call it out to the person. So, hey, just so you know, when we have these discussions, sometimes you come off as really defensive. And, we're not judging you. I think you're absolutely fantastic. Reinforce your opinion. I think you're absolutely fantastic in the job. We just want to make sure that we're having open discussions about that. And so call out that behavior, model the behavior that you're after. The other thing to do is actually play devil's advocate sometimes. That's the other thing that you can do, whether you're in a leadership role or not in a leadership role. And so you can explain your thought process on it, but then explain the flip side of it as well, playing that devil's advocate role. There's usually, a certain amount of truth on both sides of a particular argument. And so call out those two different truths on each side. Be that person that calls out that. Try those things, Laura. If that doesn't work or if this isn't resonating, then just let me know. And I'll follow up with that, and we can keep this discussion going here online as well if that doesn't resonate. Next question I've got, and actually the last one I've received offline. So if you have any questions, we're getting down to the end here. So drop down and give the questions in the comment section. I'll get right to them. How I approach things, but I've been doubting myself. Oh, handle Laura's here. I'll keep persevering. And that's so much of it, Laura. I'm glad you actually called that out. These things, especially personality traits. So this person is defensive. But this happens with your employees. This happens with your boss. If you're looking to change behavior, there isn't this magical pill that you can use on somebody that's going to get them to flip around. It's always going to be a process. And so, again, if you've tried this before, if you've been working on it, then coach this particular person, have the upfront discussion with them, be direct about it. But what you also might do is you also might make that feedback timely. So if there's a particular instance in a meeting, call them out afterwards, do it privately, but call them out afterwards and say, hey, just so you know, in this meeting, when you said this and this, it came across as defensive. That's probably not how you meant it. So give them the out. It's probably not how you meant it. But that way they're actually seeing it, because it may be a situation where they don't see their own faults. They don't think they're being defensive when they are being defensive. So get a little bit specific with it. But with so many of these things, when we talk about, it is perseverance. It isn't one time. It's the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th time that you try this that you actually start getting the results on these things, especially human behavior. Thanks for calling that out, Laura. I appreciate that. Next question. How would you start correcting poor work standards once it's been done like that for a while now and the manager has done nothing and he wants to make the change? So I kind of discussed this earlier. If you want to change the negative momentum that you have, start small and start obvious. So it can be the thing that everybody knows that nobody is talking about. That can be the obvious aspect of it, but start small. You want to create some momentum in a different direction. Yes, it is tempting to tackle the big issue, but the big issue is often comprised of a whole bunch of little things. So start with something simple, start with something small, and then next week, iron that and get that in. Lock in that win. Okay, now we have changed the way that we are filing things. I'll choose something really simple. We know that we were supposed to do our filing at the end of every day. Nobody was doing it until the end of the week. Now we are doing it every single day. Simple. Everybody knows they were supposed to do it. It's not a surprise to anybody, and it's something simple. Take that win, lock that win in over the course of a week, and then stack on something else. Maybe something a little bigger. Again, we're still not tackling our biggest issues. A little bigger, a little less obvious, lock that in over the course of the next week. After 3 or 4 weeks, then you start building into larger and larger things. So momentum in organizations, and the bigger the organization, the more true this is like a super tanker. It doesn't turn around on a dime. All right, you have to bring that thing around slowly. So lock in some simple wins, start changing that behavior around, create momentum in a different direction, and then you can just keep building and building and building. To Laura's point about persevering, it's not a quick fix, but you can turn around negative momentum. You can turn around a negative work culture. You can turn around poor accountability. It takes some time, and it just takes a little methodical process there. Start small, build up the momentum, and go forward from there. So if you have any questions, drop down. You've got about 10 seconds to throw it in there. I did want to give another shout out. If you haven't checked out my video on single step leadership, this is a new program that I'm starting here. Every week, one simple process, principle, tactic that you can put into place in leadership. The idea is we're going to do simple things, and we're just going to stack those on top of each other 1 week at a time. And over the months, that's going to create some huge opportunities for you, I think. So take a look at that video. I hope you jump on board with that program. Start putting that into place this week. I'll have another one next week. In the meantime, if you have any other questions, if you come to this video late, you can always private message me. You can always send me an email, cm@cameronmorsey.com, or drop down in the comments. I check the comments from the prior videos to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I'll get it on the next episode of Mentor Minutes. Thanks so much, everybody, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.